You are listening to the Enormocast.
I've been obsessing with the name Otaki since Sportiva released the slick blue shoe a couple years ago. Rhymes with souvlaki. In Japanese, it apparently means cascade. And there's an old Maori town in New Zealand called Otaki. What exactly are you up to, Sportiva? So in the spirit of etymological adventure, I started climbing in them despite my unsavory fetish for the caress of a slightly worn pair of Miras. And I gotta say, for sport climbing and really techie trad, I'm sold. I'm also sold on the name of the only color choice, Blue Flame. Cha-cha. But mostly, I smile at the comfort to performance ratio. Like any tightly fit shoe, a pair of Otakis are not exactly a lavender bubble bath, but of course with Sportiva's dedication to the craft, the Otakis slide on without any annoying stitch bumps and hot spots and remain tight where it matters. So if you want performance, perfect fit, and a shoe that rhymes with savory skewered meats, check out the Otaki at Sportiva.com or your favorite local shop. Kali Arexi. Hey climbers, that rock that you lovingly caress every weekend is just never going to love you back. Of course, it's never going to suddenly ask you what you're thinking right now either. But devoting even a tenth of that energy into an actual human relationship might be a better bet in terms of love and companionship, no matter what your alpinist friends say. Peter W. Gilroy is here to help. Climber and jewelry maker, Peter can hook you up with just the right gift for that human in your life who just smiles when you get home late from the crag, or who is still belaying you even though you're falling lower and lower on your proj. So go to peterwgilroy.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on art you can wear and to help the Enormocast.
We gotta get
Listen, where you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place
sold it
outside
out.
of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
20,000
We really should run.
Look, you better get up there before you panic. Those pens are loose. You're very good. I have really enjoyed climbing with you. We'll make it. I don't think so. But we shall continue with style. Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime for climbing.
Today's show is brought to you by Black Diamond Equipment, with support from Maxim Ropes.
And the fine folks at La Sportiva. And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is July 30th, 2019, about 11:30 at night here in Colorado. And this is episode 180 of the Enormocast, a conversation with Team Texas Alum climber Claire Buhrfeind. We got back from Squamish not too long ago, and I'm trying to, get all my Enormocast duties taken care of here for the month of July. Just getting it in at the end. I had a great time up there, climbed a lot of good stuff, climbed 5 out of 6 days, and on our quote-unquote rest day, we paddled a sea kayak into the wind for several hours, which, let me tell you, is not an excellent rest day activity for climbing. But the big highlight was doing Angel's Crest, a big old-school kind of trad ridge route on the Chief. That was a lot of fun. That's the way we finished the trip. And, not a lot of excitement to report. It was a nice couples trip. I didn't work a lot. I got a lot of good suggestions to talk to people up there, and I kind of just didn't really feel like working through the whole trip. I did get one interview with an old friend and connected with some others. And also, I brought my computer and forgot the plug. So just couldn't get anything done. So anyway, trying to catch up here on the Enormocast at the end of July, get one more episode out. And no real business here at the Enormocast. We're just cruising through the dog days of summer, trying to beat the heat here in Colorado. I got a bunch of great stuff in the bag, so I'm kind of kicking back just a little bit, but always looking for opportunities of other people to interview. And also back to the Squamish thing. Thanks for the suggestions. I got a lot of good ideas for people up there, and I'll come back around on that. So see who I can get done and get on the show as we near 200 episodes. Not going to do it in 2019, but sometime not too far into 2020, we're going to hit number 200. And I don't know what I'm going to do for that one. Okay, let's get to the interview with Claire. I got this opportunity up at the Black Diamond headquarters, out in the parking lot again, not unlike Allison Vest. And this was a tricky interview because, first of all, being out there listening, I can hear all the noise going on, people going by, talking, wondering what's going to appear in the podcast, whether it's going to screw it up. It makes me kind of anxious and hard to concentrate. And then once again, we're in this world that I don't know too much about, comp climbing, but I've been having a lot of fun sort of discovering what it's all about by talking to these people. But the big thing was that this woman sitting across the table from me, this young woman, was just kind of blew my mind. She just seemed so together and with it. And I think she's only 20. I did the math. I didn't ask her on the show, but I think she's 20, maybe 21. And I kind of wondered why she was climbing. Not that she's not an amazing climber, and it's given her some awesome opportunities to travel around the world, but I was just sitting there listening to her, the things she was saying, the poise with which she was saying it, and picturing her in any position anywhere in the world, like literally like a diplomat, a doctor, a surgeon, a lawyer. I mean, whatever she put her mind to, it was just like, how could she not be successful? And then she throws this little twist in the end of the interview, which you'll hear, which kind of blew my mind, just because of the poise with which she was speaking across this little picnic table in a parking lot to me. Yeah. Anyway, kind of blown away by young Claire Buhrfeind. I think we had a great conversation. I lament the noise, but I think it all worked out fine. And if the Enormocast is still going in a few years, I really need to touch base and just find out what other things this woman has succeeded at, because I'm just certain she will be great no matter what she puts her mind to. If she sticks with climbing, awesome. If she becomes a NASCAR driver, I'm sure she'll win it all. I mean, maybe she'll just stuff it and cure cancer. All the better. So I hope you guys enjoy listening to this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it with Claire Buhrfeind. High-performance climbing apparel that looks so cool on your Instagram can look notoriously out of place when you're back in real life amongst the civvies in the valley below. Just so you know, while you're waiting in line for your frothy mochaccino, bright orange pants pretty much say, I just escaped from prison. Enter Black Diamond's new forged denim pants. The Cordura blended denim stretches when you need it, fends off sharp crystals and rough rock, and looks great back at work, with just enough chalk dust to let other climbers in the office know that you were training at lunch, you sick bird. So if you want to feel good, look good on the rock and when mingling with lowlanders like an undercover climbing super agent, then go to blackdiamondequipment.com or your favorite local shop and rub up against a pair of forged denim pants from Black Diamond. Black Diamond is a proud sponsor of the Enormocast. So you're a Texas person, is this right?
Yeah. I grew up in Plano, Texas.
Plano, Texas.
No rocks.
Right. I'm familiar with Plano. My dad lived in Plano, Texas, part-time for like 8 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I've been there.
So you know how like flat and nothing
Yeah.
is.
I mean, I've been there. I have no memory of it whatsoever because it was, I don't know, it was just there. It was just a part of the whole scene there. And I grew up in the suburbs, so I'm not like hammering it because suburbs are suburbs. So, and it's a suburb of Dallas. Yeah,
it is. And I've lived there my whole life, so it's kind of funny that I ended up in climbing. It's like, in a way, it feels like it kind of shouldn't have happened, like grow up. I didn't grow up in Boulder with the mountains in my backyard, my mom and I got kicked out of a Mommy and Me gymnastics class when I was 3 because I climbed the rope to the ceiling.
Oh,
and
shame
everyone
on you.
freaked out.
Yeah.
And I was always climbing the refrigerator, like climbing everything, and my parents were like, we have to find an outlet.
God, it's really interesting because that sounds almost like a story that's like made up after the fact, but so many climbers in general, but also, climbers that then find themselves in climbing gyms now, that is really a common thing. Like they were just freaky climbers that climbed everything.
Yeah. I think I've just always loved it. And I started doing summer camps and stuff. You were supposed to be 6, and I was 5. My parents lied to get me in because they were like, she needs to do this or she'll just climb everything else in our house. Yeah, so I started doing summer camps when I was like 6, just did it for fun for a while. And then when I was around 10, I joined a youth climbing team called Team Texas. And that's when I really got into it, yeah.
Team Texas.
Yeah. So I work with Kyle Cleanscales, who's been my coach / second dad since I was 10. I'm still really close with him in the program. And I worked with them all through my youth climbing, so 10 to 18. And then when I was 15, I started competing for the adult national team, and I still work with all those guys.
Right. And so Kyle's the godfather.
Yeah.
Texas.
He started Team Texas in 96.
Right. And this is... when I said yes, it's like I have a Team Texas person.
Yeah.
I've talked to one or two others, but anyway, so here you are. I'm going to just get into it. This thing that about the Texas being flat, the Plano, Texas. It's right in the name, Plain. And yet it's this really crazy hotbed of particularly really good competition climbers, thanks to this Team Texas thing, as well as some other programs. But I think they've sort of satellited off of that.
It's kind of a dominant, the dominant team in the area.
The Team Texas thing is the nuts and bolts of why that happened. But why, in your estimation, do you think a Team Texas appeared in a place like that? Versus a team, Lincoln, Nebraska, or a team. I mean, what you know what I mean? There seems to be some alchemy down there that created this need for it, or a desire for this type of program.
Yeah, Kyle.
Thinking about growing up in that zone, what do you think?
Kyle has just always been amazing with people. I always joke he knows me better than I know myself. It's the most annoying thing in the world. But he built Team Texas not as a competitive team to try and win national championships or whatever, but he just tried to create this family environment. And so our practices and whatever, our trips were always we were hanging out as a group and as a family, and then climbing was just the thing that we did together.
Right.
And so we performed the best when we were having fun and we were really enjoying each other's company. And so we always joke we never really felt like we trained until comps got a lot more serious a couple of years ago. But all of growing up, we just kind of really had fun with it, and that was really compelling. And everybody still comes back and visits, and it's a really special environment that Kyle's created. So I think people just gravitate towards that.
Right. So it wasn't. I'm looking for some sort of environmental influence, but it really sounds like it was this guy that created something that was special, regardless of where he was.
I can't think of any environmental influence.
Right.
It's just a gym, and people happen to find it, and then people are compelled by the community, and I don't know any environmental things other than just a bunch of gyms being in the area,
right?
And I guess a bunch of kids who wanted to kick rocks together.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the indoor influence, or the influence it's had on indoor climbing actually is really more what I'm trying to say. As it's sent these people into the world, and they have moved to other places like Boulder or whatever. That definitely was because there was nothing else to climb. The indoor was the focus. And in a place like Boulder, which you brought up, as another area where there's a huge climbing influence, at least, especially say 10 or 15 years ago, the gym is this thing you do when you're not climbing outside. That's changed
just
as well
a tool between real climbing.
Well, for you guys, it was the thing.
Yeah.
Start, finish, middle.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, Kyle would also he would take us to the Red for a month every summer, and we would just camp and in like Waco every winter. But it's not like we would drive 14 hours to go to the Red, and that still feels like my home crag, you know, and it's 14 hours away from me. But I grew up climbing there every year since I was 10 with the team. But yeah, mostly like the gyms. And I think gym climbing and kind of the boom of that has brought something to these areas where people would never otherwise experience that. Like I never would have discovered how much I love sport climbing outside, and I never would have been able to travel and compete and like all these things if it wasn't for a gym kind of being the access point to all that, you know?
Yeah, I think it's cool, these trips, like these climbing trips, especially, you know, as a kid, I mean, as a teenager or even younger. How old were you the first time you like went to the Red?
10.
Yeah, 10.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a thing as a guy who started climbing 30 some years ago. I just can't even conceive of me as a 10-year-old, you know, going to a place like the Red and rock climbing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I learned to lead climb the same time that my friend Rita learned how to lead belay, and they just kind of put us on a route at roadside and were like, let us cry and like scream and figure it out. But yeah, we just like, we would take over crags. We would post at Miguel's where we were going so that people knew to avoid it. Like Team Texas is going to drive by, and everybody's like, oh shit, like 30 kids are about to climb all my projects.
Yeah,
like, you better get out. I'm not going there tomorrow.
Make me feel bad as a 10-year-old Claire sends your pride. So that's pretty cool. And so outdoor climbing was a big part of your life then. Or not a big part, but you had access to it every year, or at least a little bit. Yeah,
I would say for me, it's always been something that was like really only because I enjoyed it and only because I loved the people that I was with and all of this. Like, I never really, I mean, I probably should at this point, but I never go on a trip or am planning a trip and thinking, like, I want to send this route, this is my goal, this is what I'm going to prepare for. Like, I'm just excited to get out there and enjoy it because it's not very easy for me to get there most of the time because I do live in Dallas. And yeah, growing up, it was like we spent a lot of time in the gym, and then climbing outside is just vacation. And just like pure fun. I was never like working for anything. And that's actually when I end up like performing my best is when I'm like in that headspace. Right. You know, like competitions that I go to whenever kind of everything is in place and I need to execute. If I'm thinking about that, then I bomb every time. Really? Yeah, it's not good.
So, I mean, let's get a little bit into that psychology then. I mean, that's a hard thing to deal with. I mean, it's almost like a weird Taoist philosophy of like succeeding by letting go, or like, I mean, do you know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, it's so idealistic, but like, I'm not bullshitting you. That's actually how my brain works in this stuff. I mean, it's not, I mean, I don't think it sounds, I think it sounds completely reasonable. Yeah. I mean, you're working towards whatever goal, and that may be a competition this weekend, or it may be an overall performance goal. Like, how can you not be thinking about that all the time when every waking hour is going? Do you know what I mean? Like, it seems like it would be almost impossible to not, like, put it on a pedestal and worry about it. But I think if you have to do it, how do you do it?
I think in some areas of your life, like, you enjoy yourself when you perform well, and like you put everything into the performance, and then you enjoy that success, whatever it is, like work, like all these different things it could be. But then for me, with climbing and competing, it's always been the opposite. Like, when I enjoy myself and when I'm having like a positive experience with my friends and my environment, then I perform well. Okay. And if I try and switch it up, like, I don't know. I can't train myself into that way of thinking. Like, however many hours I spend in the gym, like, getting stronger, if I'm not in the right headspace, I don't think it means much.
So how do you control that? It sounds like could be, the dangers of these externalities that you have no control over than controlling your performance.
Yeah, it's hard, but when I go to World Cups, I am so motivated by what I get to be a part of. Like I'm not going to World Cups feeling like, oh, I want to win a gold medal or I want to be on the podium. I mean, that would be great. But I go to World Cups because I love being a part of the circuit, and I love being a part of that group of athletes from all over the world. And I love traveling, and that's what really motivates me. And when I can kind of just focus on enjoying those things, which is easy because I do love it so much, then I'm able to compete how I want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, can you talk at all about maybe the opposite of where you did? Can you give us an example of like maybe where it did break down?
Yeah,
a little bit, and you
this
fell
year.
apart. I mean, I don't want to like go down like all your missed opportunities, but more specifically, like, okay, you found yourself in a position where these things were causing you to lose your focus on the good part.
I love talking about this stuff because it's real, and it's a part of it, and every person experiences it, every competitor experiences that, obviously. But this past summer, when I was training for the World Championships in Innsbruck, so leading up to that, I had done some World Cups, and I was just kind of in a good space, like just enjoying myself, just climbing, and I actually ended up 4th in the World Cup in Arco. And then my next event was the World Championships. So then I had like this month of training, and I went to Innsbruck and I worked with Coach Roman Krajniak, he's Slovenian, but he's now the Austrian national team coach. And I worked with him every day, like for a month, and everything felt really good. I felt so strong, had great endurance, whatever. I was even working on speed climbing, which is hard for me to get myself to do. And it was almost like when it came time to the competition, everything was all lined up and everything was going so well that in my mind I was like, okay, well, this competition is going to be perfect then. Like this is going to be great because everything is all in order, and so how could anything go wrong? And I was just kind of thinking too far ahead, It's a weird pressure that I put on myself. It's easier for me to send something outside if like it's my last burn of the day and like I'm not expecting anything, I'm just climbing, And it's easier for me to compete when I have no expectations of how anything is going to turn out, and I just focus on the things I can control. But in that moment, it was like I had this really good result, and then a month of training, and I felt even stronger than I was when I got that result in Arco. And I just was super in my head about it and thought I could plan exactly how things were going to play out, and you never can. And so I totally flopped in all 3 disciplines in Innsbruck that year.
Right.
Yeah.
You're smiling about it right now.
Yeah.
And laughing, but I mean, where did that put you in terms of afterwards?
I mean, it was kind of the last event of the season. And,
right.
I mean, like you win some, you lose some. It's a part of the game, and I think having those experiences, that's really important for me to learn. Like everything is just kind of a learning experience. Like every time a competition goes bad, I know what not to do for the next time, or know what to focus on instead for the next time. So if it goes great, focus on what you did to make it great. If it goes bad, like then you have something that you need to change.
Right. But you're like right after the comp, you're like, oh well.
No, I was actually like, I was so exhausted.
Right.
I was so emotionally drained from, I had been in Europe like all summer, and I felt like everything was building up to this, and then I just blew it.
Right.
So yeah, it was emotional, but I think even though I might not compete forever, I think I'll always be a climber in some capacity, and I always just have this underlying feeling of it'll work out somehow, know? And even though this part wasn't good, like I know I have so much more ahead of me to look forward to. And so it's always kind of about the next thing. Right. And not dwelling on the past.
Well, that's extraordinarily healthy.
It's pretty good if I can do it right.
You can do it right. I mean, honestly, like that's about as good as it gets.
Yeah. I mean, Kyle used to teach us like during a route or something, when I was little, maybe if I slipped on a foot and I caught myself, or I made some dumb mistake or wasted some energy at the bottom, I used to like really dwell on that and like, oh, now I'm not going to be able to do well at the top or whatever when I was young, and I would kind of freak out. And he always he just taught everybody. He used to say, erase the chalkboard. Like if you make a mistake, like it's immediately over and you can't think about it, because that's not helpful.
Right.
Like if you're thinking in the past, you're going to be angry. If you're thinking in the future, you're going to be nervous. So whatever you can do to get yourself like into the moment is going to be the most beneficial to you.
Right. So in your past climbing, when you were when you're a teenager and you're competing, you have this sort of like, well, I was just, kind of living in the moment, having fun, and things were falling into place. Was there sort of a moment or a time period when you kind of at least partially shifted into this, like, well, wow, this could be, something I could pursue at a super high level, or I could pursue as a career? Or, is it more of that things just kept falling into place?
I remember when it was announced that climbing would be in the Olympics, my first thought was like, oh, cool, like I'm going to know the people who are in the Olympics. I wasn't like, oh, I really want to do that, I just thought it's so far down the road, like that's a really cool thing, but I'm going to go to college, and that's not really, I'm excited for our sport and for the growth of the sport, but it wasn't really something that I immediately was drawn to. Mm-hmm. And then a year later, or maybe it was later that year, I don't really remember when, I went to my last Youth Worlds in Innsbruck, and I won bouldering and sport, and I got 4th in speed. And the 3 girls who beat me in speed weren't competing in the overall, so I literally had a rank of 1. And I just kind of realized, like, oh, whoa, like, maybe I could do it, maybe it could be me. Like, why not? Why not try, or why not think about that? I kind of immediately discounted myself. I was like, oh, it's going to be so fun to watch Yanya and Miho and all these girls, And I never really considered it until some, like, real evidence was in front of me that I could be successful in the overall.
Right.
And I've always climbed in all 3 disciplines, I used to hate speed climbing. I'm still not the biggest fan of training speed climbing.
Right.
Just because it's so repetitive to me, and I'm such an over-competitive asshole. Like, I'm only motivated to go fast if I'm racing someone in a competition. So if I go to the gym, like, I cannot get myself to
just do a personal best against yourself.
Oh my gosh,
kind of
no.
Training.
It's like beating my head against the wall. I just can't do it. But I've always done all 3, and I've always like loved being an all-around athlete and loved going to sport and speed nationals and participating in everything. Mm-hmm. And I love racing, but I hate speed climbing. Like, I love competing and racing, and it's so fun, but that element of it, like the work that goes behind it, I'm just not on the same level as these other girls.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me add, the speed climbing is the funny thing that's like, in all these talks I've talked with, now that we're talking about the Olympics, because that's what's put it on the plate for Americans, Canadians, a lot of Europeans. And everybody's sort of around it. What specifically do you do to train that besides just like try to haul ass up those holds? I mean, is there sort of like methods and ideas that have been refined by some of these, these speed demons, from some of these other countries where it's a much more popular thing? I mean, are you guys looking to find this science in that the way you do for strength training and bouldering and stuff like that?
Yeah,
what does it look like?
There are some people that have it really dialed.
Right.
For me personally, it's probably pretty annoying to anyone who is like super into speed climbing, but I like, if I have a nationals or something, like 2 weeks before the event, I'll like get on the wall again and kind of like wake up my muscle memory and just do that throughout the 2 weeks. And then when I'm competing, I'm just like, I just always manage to get my best time somehow because I'm so competitive and so like motivated by that. So my training is literally just like, oh, I have to like wake up my speed climbing skills before the comp, and then I try not to touch it until the next one, just because I'm bitter about it and it makes me crazy.
Do you think that's, has it's been effective for you, that kind of thing? Because you're definitely like, not that any real hardcore speed climbers probably listen to this, but,
I've won the Speed National Championship 3 times.
Okay, so it's working for you.
Yeah.
All right.
Which is like kind of encouraging this bad behavior I have, and now everybody else coming into it is like working so hard, and I'm just, oh God, like I just want to race you guys. Like I don't want to train this thing, But there's some people, Alexei, I don't know his last name. He's a speed coach that now like works out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And I have worked with him a few times, and he is really, really smart and just has all these kind of innovative ways to train like coordination and like reaction time. Mm-hmm. But the actual speed climbing itself, like it's strength, but it's muscle memory.
Right.
And just kind of executing and being smooth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been so fascinating because on another podcast I talked to Chris Parker, who went to Innsbruck, from Black Diamond, and he gave us kind of the lowdown, and it wasn't long after it was on everybody's purview. And for you guys who've been competing, like it wasn't totally out of the blue, and you've been doing it, but for us casual observers of competition climbing, like I didn't even realize that it was the same route.
Yeah, it's always kind of been like its own thing, even within competition climbing. Right. I mean, kind of the way that the perception of competition climbing is from like maybe these like old school big wall guys. It's like, oh, like
me. Hello.
Exactly. Just like, oh, like what is this? I don't understand. Like, why is this a part of what I do? And in competition climbing, there's that divide in our community too, where it's like, speed climbing, like that's not the real. That's like track and field stuff. That's racing. That's not climbing.
Right.
And that's kind of the general perspective of it. But then when the Olympics came around, now people have to humble themselves. Yeah. And everyone loves to talk shit on speed climbing. I love to talk shit on speed climbing, but I love competing so much that it's like you just have to accept as part of it,
I don't know. I mean, it's been fascinating because, well, actually, I just talked to Allison Best, and I don't know if it may be out before I put this one out. I'm not sure if it's out there yet, but nevertheless, she pointed out, and I hadn't really realized, is that the triple format is actually like really hosing these speed guys more than anybody else.
Yeah, it's insane, actually.
And, because they're not going to get anywhere near being on the podium for the other two disciplines. So it's basically like discounted them more so than anybody else in the climbing world, which is a freaking shame. Yeah. In terms of sport, because in terms of sport period, you want to hope that your best people are doing the thing that
they're best at. Yeah.
And basically, it seems to me, and maybe this will play out differently than I'm imagining, but it seems to me that the best speed climbers aren't going to be in the speed comp, which is, that's just like philosophically weird.
Yeah, it sucks. And like the way that the combine works, like maybe not even all the best lead climbers, all the best boulders. It's just the way that the nature of the combined format. Yeah. But I know originally, so the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, told IFSC, International Federation of Sport Climbing, that climbing could be in the Olympics either as only speed climbing or as a combined discipline.
Okay.
And so from the IFSC's perspective, they're like, okay, well, if we go into it with a combined, eventually if it's big and people like it, we can separate it out.
Split it
and we'll have more medals,
Totally. Yeah. It's just a tricky thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like just what we had to go for to get our foot in the door. And I think next year it's already, or not next year.
Next time,
and Paris 24 is already different. Right. Speed's its own thing, and sport and bouldering are combined.
Okay. Well, that's good, because they must have realized that. And I'm sure the speed demon climbers, have been complaining more than the not speed climbers.
Yeah.
Because and it hadn't even occurred to me, but they got totally hosed.
Yeah, because it's really easy to train speed climbing. Like it's kind of like you learn the route, and this is exactly what you're going to do every time. And like if you can get consistent and get strong and familiar, then you're going to be able to perform well.
Right.
Perform well for yourself and in relation to the other guys who are maybe learning speed climbing, right? But from a speed climber, for a speed climber to go and transition into bouldering or sport climbing, it's a completely different set of skills, obviously. And if you are a speed-specific person, like you only speed climb, then you don't climb like the guys don't climb like V14, you know?
Right.
And everybody on the World Cup circuit climbs insanely hard. And like you just, you can't build that quickly enough in the time frame that we have.
Well, the ironic thing, I guess, from our perspective anyway, is that, it could very well come down to who can post up the speed.
Yeah. Yeah,
because
I think it will.
Yeah,
I think speed is like the deciding factor.
Yeah, it really is going to be, which is kind of wild because everybody is, I think, strategizing.
I think it's funny too, if all these non-climbers are spectating or whatever, they have no idea what's a hard move and what's an easy move. And when you're watching someone really strong do something really hard, it looks like they just did a V2 move, And then in speed climbing, someone who doesn't understand the difficulty of things, they're like, holy shit, 5.5 seconds is fast. I understand that.
Watching the lion, what's his name, Rizza.
Oh God!
Watching that guy climb the wall.
It's self-proclaimed. He on his Instagram it says he's the fastest vertical man in the world.
Yeah, I think he is. I don't know.
He's scary.
Yeah, but nevertheless, watching him climb, you're like, okay, that's again just as an observer, you're like, that's some explosive, wild athleticism. Yeah. And I think again, watching the bouldering, I've often joked. I mean, not just bouldering in general, but climbing in general, strength type climbing. If you see pictures of Alex Honnold with his shirt off, if you told some sports physiologists this is our best guy, he would be like, huh. I think I could do some work, or
we can probably improve upon this.
These super ripped but tiny, Japanese climbers or whatever. I don't know, it doesn't make sense in a way. Yeah. But I don't know. It's all going to play out, and for all the back and forth on it, I think most climbers who have a little bit of skin in the game are going to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so the qualifications for the Olympics, I don't know if you talked about this with anyone else yet. So there's 20 spots per gender for the world, right? I might be messing up the numbers a bit, but so 7 of those spots will come from the top 7 at the combined World Championships, and from any country. So there's no country is guaranteed any spots except Japan gets 1 per gender, right? So then there's 19 left. 7 of those spots are going to the top 7 at the combined World Championships. And then throughout the World Cup season, which is basically April to October, athletes will have a score based on their 2 best bouldering results, 2 best lead, and 2 best speed. And then the top 20 out of that goes to a qualifying event in Toulouse, France.
Okay.
And the top 7 go to the Olympics.
Okay.
And then I think that leaves 5. So then those are the continental spots.
What
and
about
the winner? The winner of the combined continental championships.
Okay.
Will go.
Right.
Yeah. So there's three ways you can kind of qualify.
Right. Is there? There's no guarantee that any other country has somebody in there besides Japan.
I mean, we might have 2 women and 2 men, and we might have nobody.
Okay.
Which I think, being the first year and only having 20 athletes, I think is actually really rad because that it's the 20 best. We don't have to make sure that, I don't know, we're not going to take a spot that would be better served for someone from Slovenia, you know, and like someone else isn't going to take a spot that would be better served for our, you know, it's it's just how do you perform in a World Cup season? Like, this is who's going.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that scary?
Like, it's what we do, you know? It's intimidating, but it's not, I don't think it's really any different.
Right.
It's just the next level of competition. Because this, like, all of us, we spend, I mean, most of the year training and traveling and competing all over the place. Like, we do it because we love it, you know? And this is like another opportunity that kind of elevates the level of competition, or clearly elevates it. And it's this new challenge, the combined. I think people are definitely intimidated a little bit. I think that would be fair to say, but I don't think anyone's like scared of it.
Right.
It's what we love to do. So.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that combined thing is forcing people to, you know, obviously broaden their skills, but also, you know, there does become like a bunch of strategy in thinking about, you know, because the way you end up on top of the combined.
Yeah, how do you prioritize?
Which ones? And I mean, it should be interesting in terms of this next couple of years of people sort of finding their place in what they need to do.
Yeah.
Is there, you know, you just explained all that to me, and I'd have to think about it again, or listen back to it.
It's been explained to me about 100 times.
Right. Is there any sort of like mechanism in there where somebody who's really, really good could just blow it at the wrong time and, you know, sort of a sudden death? It didn't sound like it.
I think, well, because you have like 3 chances, right?
Right.
So there's being consistent over the World Cup season, getting this invitation, the qualifying event. If you blow it there, yeah, sure. But then maybe you do really well in the World Championships and you have a shot. Or maybe you win your Continental Championship. So there's three kind of areas. So
let me ask you this. If you qualify at the World Championships, then can you still go to Toulouse too?
I mean, I don't think you would. I think because the hierarchy of how it works, like at World Championships, imagine like Margot and Ashima get first and second, and then imagine
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And then imagine I win Toulouse, they go, because the World Championships is like number 1,
right?
And I would be the 3rd American, so I'm out. It doesn't matter that you know. So if those spots are
don't put yourself on the other side of that analogy.
Well, I don't.
So you and Ashima are 1, and then Margot gets out. I'm just trying to help you out with the positivity.
It's easier to.
I know you're not supposed to say that.
And I'm kind of out of it, mostly like already.
Really?
You know, I mean, last year, like I had a great year. I was national champion in sport and speed, and like did really well on the World Cup circuit. Excuse me. And then I just kind of had a really rough, like 6 months. Like I came home from World Championships and I got mono, and I was like out of it, like so exhausted. I was sleeping like 14 hours a day.
Oh, that sounds awesome.
And like napping. No, it was not awesome.
No, I mean, for me, I'd be super stoked.
I was excited in the beginning. I was like, oh yeah, I get to be like lazy. And then I was like, oh, I'm like actually trapped in how tired I am. Like I can't make myself wake up, you know? And that was like October until January, I want to say. Or no, not January, maybe December. And then in December, I partially ruptured my A4 in my ring finger on my right hand. And then the qualifications for the U.S. team to go to all of the Olympic qualifying stuff is the combined championship in January, bouldering nationals in February, and sport and speed nationals in March.
Okay.
So I couldn't really train on my finger. It was really bothering me. And then I would just kind of show up and like try and compete. And then I would do nothing again. And then show up and try and compete. Just because I wanted to give myself a shot.
Right.
And I really wore myself down. And now I am kind of being forced to like take some serious time off. And I have an invitation to compete at the World Cup in Vail. I won't be able to go. And then I won't get invitations for the Lead World Cups because I bombed at SES Nationals this year. And I guess it's not SES anymore. Whatever, sport nationals.
Right.
And you have to accrue points throughout the season within the World Cups to be invited to the World Championships.
Okay.
And so I'm like,
You're
all
bringing
of
me
that
down
is done.
there.
I know.
You're bringing me down.
Yeah, but honestly, like, I mean, as much as it sucks, like, it's another one of those things that I cannot really control, and I just kind of have to accept. And I potentially, in 2020, in January, that's when our continental stuff starts happening, the Pan American Championships. So potentially I will be able to compete for a spot to go to Pan Am and then compete there and try and get that one spot to go.
Okay.
But that's like last ditch effort in January, and I'm missing like this whole season,
Right.
But I kind of see it as more of an opportunity. I guess I was really beating my head against the wall in a lot of different ways, and now I'm excited to kind of focus on all these other parts of me that I never really put that much energy into,
Like what?
I mean, I don't know if this is like too personal or anything.
No, this personal's great.
I don't know if this is too much information or too personal, but I really, really struggle with anxiety.
Okay.
And I have for a very long time, and it's really easy for me to kind of trick myself and distract myself into not dealing with those types of things that I really need to kind of be working through, and like dive into training or dive into yoga or like go on a trip to go compete in Japan. And it's easy for me to not work on myself because I have so many other things I can kind of direct my energy and attention towards. But yeah, mental health is something that I think is, obviously there shouldn't really be a stigma, but there is, and I think there's not a lot of open space in the climbing community where people talk about it.
Right.
And it's very real for me,
Well, so when you say, I can dive into this or I can dive into that, what's wrong with that? Because it seems like almost like, you have anxiety, you should try yoga.
Yeah.
So they both feel like maybe a symptom of it as well as a cure, or not a cure, but as well as therapy. Sorry, cure is not the right word. Do you know what I mean? Like,
it's more just like I'm really good at avoiding.
Okay, so the diving in is actually like
so like for example, like the World Cup circuit this summer, I kind of withdrew from everybody at home, like not even really realizing I was doing it, and I was like, I don't need to talk to them. I'm doing great. I'm being so independent and traveling. And then towards the end, I started to realize, oh shit, like I've just been avoiding dealing with all this anxiety and all these feelings, and withdrawing from these people because I'm kind of embarrassed about or like ashamed of what I'm going through,
Right.
And it's really easy for me to just distract myself and convince myself that it's not something I need to deal with. It's not something that needs my attention. Right. And I'm really good. I love believing my own bullshit, And so now that I have this time where I'm not on this crazy rigid schedule with the World Cups, like I'm just really ready to kind of work on myself. I'm tired of feeling like a crazy person sometimes.
So what does working on yourself look like, do you think?
It's like going to therapy and writing and trying to get better about communicating with people. I think withdrawing is like the biggest thing I do. It's just I don't tell anybody what's going on with me, and so it's almost like it's not real, and I don't have to work on it if it's not put out there to someone else.
Right.
So yeah, I really need to work on like communicating with people who can help me instead of just shutting them all out, and like going to therapy and writing is really therapeutic for me, so I'm going to try and do more of that. And then classic like yoga.
Sure. Well, that's why I thought of that.
Like stereotypical, yeah.
Right. Like throwing yourself into yoga.
Yeah.
It seems like it could be good and I suppose bad.
Yeah. I love that stuff. It's just I need to recognize when I'm doing that with like the intention of helping myself, and when I'm doing it with the intention of distracting myself from a bigger problem.
Right. I'm going to become the best yoga person ever.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing a pose so much better than her, or so much worse than her.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm so good at distracting myself. And so now I'm like
So do you imagine your future staying in Texas?
For right now, it's the best home base for me.
Right.
And I think I touched on it a little bit earlier, but the reason why I love climbing and I love like all of the opportunities that it's given me to travel and everything, which is a lot, and it's still kind of insane to me how much I'm so fortunate that I'm able to do this, you know. But my favorite part is the community and connecting with people, and that's why I want to be at World Cups. You know, that's why I want to go on a climbing trip. It's because I want to be a part of the community and I want to be around those people. And that's kind of how I feel about Dallas. Like, it's the best spot for me to be right now. I love Kyle and everybody that works at Summit, which is the gyms he owns down there, and I love all the Team Texas people, and my family's there too. So right now it's the best spot for me, and it's a good international airport, so I kind of hop back and forth between places.
Yeah.
But yeah, it makes the most sense for me right now. And so I think I'll stay there for the short term at least.
Right.
I know I will, but long term I don't know. I really do want to go back to school. I went to school at the University of Washington in Seattle straight out of high school that fall, and then it was just a lot for me to try and balance climbing and school, and I was used to being really good at both, and now they both were kind of slipping, and I wasn't really okay with it, and I didn't really know very many people, and it was just kind of a difficult situation. And so then it was like, okay, put a pause on this. I'm going to climb now and really take advantage of this moment, like the opportunities I have to work with companies like BD and companies like Red Bull and all of these, like this kind of unique time in my life. But I've always known that I want to go back to school, and I really miss it. I miss like learning, and I miss meeting different kinds of people, because the only people I ever hang out with are climbers, which is cool. I love climbers, but there's not a lot of variety there, you know? Yeah. So I know I want to go back to school, and I don't know if that'll be in Dallas. I don't know if that'll be like in New York or Colorado or wherever. Yeah.
Right. Well, that'll probably remain to be seen in terms of the work you do on the next year.
Yeah, I think so.
So, well, cool. Well, thanks for sitting down.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Hopefully, I don't know, the traffic noise or whatever, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a real pleasure, and I don't know if you feel like your anxiety shows outwardly, and I don't know if you were anxious at all to do this.
A little bit.
I know, but it's like I would, if it makes you feel any better, there's no way I would have thought that you were anything but on top of this whole thing.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
And I think the people here at Black Diamond feel the same way.
All right.
So, yeah.
I'm good at convincing other people too. It's not just good at convincing myself.
Well, maybe it's just that's the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, in some scenarios, I feel like super comfortable. Like,
cool.
I love having conversations like this, and I appreciate these kinds of opportunities. But then, like, I can't think of a situation specifically that makes me.
But that's the thing about anxiety, is it hits you when you're.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I understand from it. Talking to other people even on this show is that, why am I anxious in the grocery store?
Yeah. Exactly. It's like. And it's the feeling
or wherever it happens to hit you.
When you're super anxious and you know that you're being irrational,
right?
But you can't turn it off.
Sure.
So it's like, I know that these thoughts are like not real, and I know that I'm kind of ruminating on this one thing, and I'm like going down that rabbit hole, and I know that it's not true, and I know that it's really irrational and doesn't make any sense, but you can't pull yourself out of it.
Yeah.
And that's like the scary part of it, it's just you kind of lose that control. But yeah, I'm happy to be like candid about it. It's something I've dealt with for a really long time, and I think it definitely helps me to like put that outward. And I wish that more people older than me when I was younger had kind of done the same, because it's so common. It's so common.
Everybody's just suffering in this silent world.
Yeah, and everybody has like this shame around it, and it's very understandable, but I think the more people that are comfortable with kind of sharing their story and like reaching down and like you're not alone. Like, I'm crazy too. And not crazy, but like within the climbing community, there's not really like as much of an open discussion about that sort of thing. And it's something I would like to see happen. 'Cause I know it's important to me, and I know it's important to others. So,
well, it's a good example of someone who, you've been very successful in this world that you've been in. I mean, you've had your ups and downs. We've talked about them, but nevertheless, from the outside looking in. So I think that's also encouraging. It's not debilitating to the point of having put you so far off track that you can't function.
Yeah.
And I think that probably would be encouraging to someone having the similar thoughts, especially someone young.
Yeah.
And looking at the future of like, well, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe in climbing and just sport in general as like an incredible vehicle to drive self-discovery and self-empowerment. And I think that these experiences that I've had through climbing and the community and being able to feel comfortable going to a random country and like getting around alone, those kinds of things like give me a sense of empowerment and a sense that I can take care of myself, and like whatever happens, I'm going to figure it out and I know how to handle it. And I think that, coupled with other people expressing that they feel the same way and you can kind of work through it together is amazing. And climbing is what has given me that hope and that like assurance. Like I know I'm going to work through it because I care about fixing it, and I care about working on it every day. And so I know it will work out. And climbing and traveling is what has given me like the confidence to say that. And so I think I love seeing like young kids getting into the sport or whatever, like any sport really, just because the community that you find through something like climbing that can take you all over the world or all over the country or wherever and introduce you to all these different types of people, it really like opens your mind, So I love that, and I want to share that kind of feeling with others or help other people find that sense of confidence in themselves, I guess.
All right, folks, thanks for listening. So yeah, the twist in the end, anxiety. She deals with anxiety. No way to tell, sitting across the table, that was the case. I just left the conversation thinking, man, the kids are all right. The kids are all right. So thank you, Claire. Thanks for doing that. I also just realized this is the first episode since Lander. Haven't recapped Lander. Maybe we'll talk about that in the intro to the next show. We had a great time up there selling merch, though, so I want to remind you guys that the Enormocast does have a shop with T-shirts and hats. So if you want to check that out, head over to enormocast.com and see what kind of wares we have. We're full up on men's shirts again. I got a big order of men's in, and there's a little bit of slim pickings in the women's side, but I'll be ordering some of those soon as well. But there's a bunch of stuff left on that side too. So come check it out and buy something. Represent. All right, folks, we're just trying to beat the heat still here in Colorado. Most of the lower 48 this time of year is a little rough. Got to hide out in the shade, and those poor Europeans having a hell of a summer climbing season. It's just brutal over there. I don't even want to think about it. The implications are bleak. Anyway, keep your sweaty hands on those ropes. Make sure to take care of each other out there. And of course, check your knots.
Always with you what cannot be done. Do you nothing that I say?
Master, moving stones around is one thing. This is totally different.
No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned.
All right, I'll give it a try.
No, try not. Do or do not. There is no try.
I said the world is round now, it ain't flat. The teachers told me that's